The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act is trash. Here's why. Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe only if you like the content, only if you like what I'm providing here today. And it's what helps keep diverse voices like mine alive here on YouTube. So today we're going to be talking about the quote unquote SAVE Act. Let's talk about it. The SAVE Act, commonly referred to as the Save America Act, H.R. 22. This bill is the cornerstone of the current legislative agenda. Its primary aim is to require documentary proof of citizenship for individuals to register to vote in federal elections. Now, seeing as that we already have laws on the books that currently keep bureaucratic safeguards in place to keep illegal voting to a minimum already on the books, this is just purely political at this point. The current legislative status, House Representatives. The bill passed the House in February 2026 with a vote of 218 to 213, largely along party lines. Senate. It is currently under active deliberation. While Republicans hold a 53-seat majority, the bill faces a filibuster from the Democratic minority, meaning it requires 60 votes to pass. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has indicated that if the bill does not pass, it will be a major campaign issue for the 2026 midterms. Executive support. Your President Trump has signaled strong support for the bill, frequently citing election integrity as the top priority. That's an interesting take from your president, but I'm gonna speak on that a little later in the video. Documentary proof. To register for federal elections, an individual would need to provide specific documents such as a U.S. passport, a birth certificate paired with a photo ID or a real ID that specifically denotes citizenship. In-person requirement. For those registering by mail, the bill mandates that proof of citizenship must be presented in person to a state or local election official. Voter roll purges. The act requires states to remove suspected non-citizens from existing voter rolls and mandates the Department of Homeland Security to share unredacted data with states to facilitate this. Criminal penalties. Election officials could face up to 5 years in prison for registering an individual who has not provided the required documentation. Accessibility. Critics argue that 52% of registered voters do not have an unexpired passport with their current legal name. Married women who have changed their surnames often face a document gap between their birth certificates and their current IDs. Rule barriers. Advocacy groups highlight that in some Western states, voters might have to drive hundreds of miles to an election office to present documents in person. Current law. Opponents point out that it is already a federal crime for non-citizens to vote, and the SAVE Act adds a layer of bureaucracy they claim is designed to suppress turnout rather than secure elections. And that's me. I happen to be one of those said critics. It's very obvious what's going on here. The Republicans know that they're going to lose, they're going to get their ass kicked, and they're trying to do everything in their power to prevent the incoming ass whooping. It's very obvious. Anybody who's paid attention to politics can see this by now. They're worried about what's coming for them. The voters have spoken. They've been in power. They've had they have all three branches of government, believe it or not. The executive, legislative, and the judicial. They have all three. And look how the country's turning out. Look what's going on. Gas prices are going up. Food prices are going up. Well, just everything is going up. Everybody's rent, mortgages, everything is going up year by year. And Americans are feeling the pain. And so what power does the American public have in this fragile ecosystem of a democracy they say that we have? If we have a democracy, which not everybody believes we does, that's a topic for another day. But If we have a democracy, then what is the people's only power? Well, their power is to vote. Well, as you can see, they're coming up with bills and laws to try to stifle people's vote, aka take power away from the people. It's not power to the people, it's taking power away from the people. Yes, I happen to be one of the critics because, as it said, 52% of people don't have a passport, unexpired or otherwise. And if that's going to be one of your main pushes, oh, it's got to be a passport or it's got to be a birth certificate. Most people don't have their birth certificate. And I mean, how many times a day, a week, a year are you even using your birth certificate? Come on, let's be honest. It's like your social security card. You kind of, if you have it, you store it somewhere, and oftentimes you might even hide it from yourself. I've been guilty of that a few times myself. And so, to the other point, what about the women who get married and they change their last name? What? All of a sudden they're not American citizens for some reason? Because when they go to try to register the vote, all of a sudden your name on your ID doesn't match what's on your birth certificate or your passport. If you happen to get your passport before you get married, are they not American citizens at that point? What are we doing here? And as far as the other side of that debate, the other side of that coin, when they say we're trying to stop illegals from actually voting, common sense would dictate, and that's why, I know common sense isn't so common these days. Common sense would tell you, if you're an illegal immigrant, which I don't believe in that terminology anyway, if you're over here without your so-called papers, I don't think they're going to try to go and vote. Why would you put yourself at risk of deportation? Why would you expose yourself trying to go vote? This is me using common sense. You see, these politicians are trying to placate and they're trying to scare you. That's all this is. And what they're really doing is they're deflecting. They're not talking about the issues that's actually affecting American people. They're not talking about fixing the gas prices. They're not talking about preventing rents and mortgages from constantly spiking up. They're not even talking about how inflation is higher than they expected, higher than they predicted. They predict, or they try to go by 2% a year, when in our reality it's almost at 4% this year alone, which is higher than what they anticipated. So they're not doing anything to solve these crises. Words are hard sometimes. And they dangle this in front of you to distract you. They put this in front of you to serve as, hey, let's create a problem and then let's try to fix the problem, even though we're not fixing the actual problems that you elected us here to do. This is what's going on. Right now, I'm picking on the Republicans. Absolutely. If Democrats ever get back in power, I will critique them as I should, just like I'm doing the Republicans. But the Republicans are obviously trying to stop people from going out there and voting because they know what's coming for them. So with all this talk about voter fraud, it actually got me to thinking about, maybe let's check it out. Let's look into it. Are their claims legitimate? Because they seem to be talking about it a lot about voter fraud in an election year when they know they're going to get their asses handed to them. Convenient, right? You believe in coincidences? I sure as hell don't. Voter fraud statistics in the United States are tracked by various government agencies, academic institutions, and independent organizations because there is no single real-time national database. Current statistics are usually compiled from post-election audits and cumulative databases of proven legal cases. So, based on like everything else in this world, they only base the statistics off of what they catch. And the problem with this is speculation. Like anything in this world, you can say, well, this is all that we're catching. If we're catching this, then it could be so much more. And that type of speculation is what can lead to witch hunts and wild goose chases. Because if it's not a proactive thing, not proactive, but if it's not so out in the open, to mean it's not so egregious and it's not so obvious that it's happening. You have people, like the old metaphor, you're a hammer in search of a nail. You're looking for the problem, even though it may not necessarily exist. And that's what they're doing here with this pathetic bill. The Heritage Foundation, which is a right-leaning entity, by the way, which maintains a database of, quote, proven instances, unquote, of election fraud cases that resulted in a criminal conviction, civil penalty, or judicial finding, provides the following figures as of December 2025. Since 1979, total proven instances, 1,620. Criminal convictions, 1,382. Civil penalties, 50. Diversion programs, 138. Elections overturned, 25. On a per year basis, this averages roughly 36 proven cases per year nationwide. When measured against the billions of votes cast over that 45-year period, academic researchers and nonpartisan groups like the Brennan Center for Justice characterize the incidence rate as, quote, vanishingly rare, unquote, typically calculating it at less than 0.0001%. So again, their solution, looking for a problem, because they've already told you it's less than 1%. Again, it's not a problem. You want to talk about 36 over the billions of ballots that have been casted since that time. I think it said 1979. Couldn't be more obvious at this point what they're trying to do. 2024 election cycle data. Post-election audits for the November 2024 presidential election were conducted throughout 2025. Key findings from specific states include Wisconsin, a statewide audit released in March 25, examined 327,230 ballots, roughly 10% of the state's total. It found 0 machine errors and only 5 human errors, an error rate of 0.0000009%. Election clerks referred 46 instances of suspected fraud or irregularities to prosecutors for the entire 2024 cycle. In Texas, in June of 2025, the state attorney general's office opened investigations into 33 potential non-citizens suspected of voting in the 2024 general election. In Michigan, an audit report released in October 2025 confirmed that the state's 2024 election results were accurate and secure, with no evidence of systemic fraud found during the recount and audit processes. And in Georgia, one notable 2024 case involved a canvasser in Fulton County charged with 70 counts of felony fraudulent entries for allegedly submitting fictitious names on voter registration applications. And during the research I was doing, trying to provide information for this video, guess who else's name came up? Elon Musk. Yeah. The state election board determined that America PAC violated Georgia law by sending out pre-filled or partially pre-filled absentee ballot applications. The investigation, designated as case SEB 2024-151, followed complaints from election officials in several counties, including Cherokee, Floyd, Whitfield, Chattooga, and Coweta. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those correctly. Legal violations. The board found the PAC in violation of OCGA 21-2-381, which governs the distribution of absentee ballot applications by private entities. Specifically, pre-filling data. The law restricts third-party groups from sending applications that already contain the voter's personal information. Missing disclaimers. The PAC failed to include the legally required conspicuous disclaimer stating, quote, "This is not an official government publication and was not provided to you by the name of the election official. So the state of Georgia, the election board, caught Elon Musk's pact, America pact, caught him in the act of sending out pre-filled registration applications. Now, to be fair, they're applications, not ballots. They can't legally obtain ballots. But still, I'm thinking, well, what was the outcome? What was the outcome of catching a billionaire red-handed? It's exactly what you think. In a unanimous vote on February 18th, 2026, the board opted for a letter of reprimand rather than a heavy fine or criminal referral. Board members noted that while the applications were technically valid in the sense that they were intended for real voters, the method of delivery bypassed state security and transparency requirements designed to prevent voter confusion and ensure that only official government documents are mistaken for such. And this is the game, because to them it's a game. They're playing games with the democracy and all, but to them it's a game. This is what they do. They try to confuse the voters. They try to throw all these little obstacles at folks because they know that people are busy living their lives. They know they don't really have time to pay attention to every little thing that's going on. See, when you're a billionaire and when you have money, you don't have to worry about your necessities. You don't have to worry about paying bills. You don't have to worry about putting gas in your car. You don't have to worry about going grocery shopping. You don't even have to worry about the prices of said groceries. You don't have to worry about those things because out of all those things I just named, those rich folks don't even do that themselves. They have people designated to do those things for them. And so what else does a billionaire do with all that time on their hands that they have? You know, because time is really the most precious resource we have on this planet. What else do? They try to figure out ways to fuck over everyone else in the process because they're so bored. They're not in survival mode. They don't have to worry about where's my next meal going to come from, or do I have enough money for the light bill, or are they going to try to garnish my check, or are they going to come after me for something else? You don't have to worry about that because you have more money than God knows. And in a capitalistic system, according to that system, you're at the top of the food chain. So in the meanwhile, what else are you doing? Well, you're trying to figure out ways to keep the profits coming in. You're trying to figure out how to stay afloat, how to get even richer, because it's greed at the end of the day. And in the process of this greed, the love of money, everyone else is getting screwed over in the process. Politicians included. Politicians can be bribed. Not can be. They are being bribed. With all the insider trading and all the other problems that we have with politicians, the billionaires control the country. It is not the people. It is not us. We would like to believe it. We would like to believe that we are in control, but we know that we're not. But we can take back control. It's just not going to look pretty when we do it. So remember the part of the video when I said it's an interesting take from your president, but I'm going to speak on that a little later in the video. I want you to hear from your president directly in his own words, talking about election rigging.
I had none of them had I not had a rigged election. Had the election not been rigged, I would have been out of here. I would have been gone.
When we made this, it was made during my term, my first term, and it was so sad because I said, can you imagine I'm not going to be president? And that's too bad. And then what happened is they rigged the election and I became president. So that was a good thing. That was a good thing. That was quite an achievement for both of us. So I'll be president during the World Cup and during the Olympics, which we were very...
A year right after the 250. I didn't get 250. I tried to claim it a couple of times. I said, and I produced 250-year anniversary. That was my deal. I got 250 years, and the press hit me hard on that one, so I gave that up immediately. But I happened to be president during that, so think of it. So I'm the president, and I got these two things, and I said, you know what? I got the Olympics to come to the United States, and I got the World Cup to come to the United States, and I probably won't even be invited to be there. And I was really angry. And then they rigged the election, and then I said, I'm coming back. And I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. Right?
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. The people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
And just like that, there you have it. Straight out of the horse's mouth himself. Talking about how the election was rigged. Yes, rigged in his favor. No one was really talking about elections being rigged like that. Now, don't get me wrong. We all know that the 2000 election was, I won't say rigged, but definitely stolen, because the actual voters voted for Gore. We're not going to rehash this, but it was the Supreme Court who stopped the count in Florida, which gave Bush the victory. So Bush was technically selected, not really chosen by the American people. Of course, Gore got the popular vote and everything. But in regards to you all's orange master, he's telling you, and he's told you 1,000 times, that the election was rigged in his favor. And that's the same thing that the Republicans are doing. That's the same thing the Republicans are doing currently. I can already predict, and it's so obvious. So it's not even really much of a prediction if you already know. Well, I mean, I guess it is. But the simple fact is, if they don't pass the SAVE Act, they're simply going to say, when the election results come down in November, and it's not in their favor, they're going to say the election was stolen. They're just taking cues from their orange master. The election was stolen. We tried to pass the SAVE Act, but all of the illegals voted. With no way to prove that. No way to prove it at all. Just making wild bullshit accusations. Told you sometimes words are hard. Just bullshit all across the board. They know they're going to get their asses kicked. I know I said this earlier in the video, but look at it. Democrats have won all the most of the special elections that have taken place. So they can really see the warning signs, which is why they're reacting the way they're reacting. They have internal polling, they have internal data, and it all suggests that they're going to lose in the House. Probably the Senate too, who knows? Because they can see the backlash coming. So what do? You fabricate this bullshit about, election integrity, when you just saw the numbers. When it's like, it's very minuscule and not enough to actually overturn any elections like that. They say it was 25. Honestly, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt because those numbers came from Heritage, and I don't trust Heritage, honestly. But even still, the fact being, you know what's coming down the pike and you're scared. You're scared because you're not doing anything to help the American people right now. You're not doing anything to solve the American people's problems. Unless you're a rich billionaire, a rich multimillionaire. You're not doing nothing to help that. You're not doing anything to help the average person who voted for you. I didn't vote for you fuckers. You're betraying your constituency, and deep down they know that. But it's too many people stuck playing party politics. It's a team. I'm on team red. I'm on team blue. It's a team thing. It's a game. Like I said, it's a game to you all. But it's not a game to people that are actually feeling what's going on. Why is it that the people always have to pay the consequences and repercussions of y'all bullshit? Y'all get in Congress and don't do anything. You don't do anything to help us. You help yourselves and you help your donors. So to sum this up about why the SAVE Act is bullshit, It's bullshit simply because it's a political game. You don't even have verifiable evidence to prove all of this, fraud. That you think all this overwhelming fraud that's supposedly going to overturn these elections. Why are we complaining about fraud and you all won? You all won in 2024. So are you telling on yourself like your president did when he said the election was rigged? Are you all telling on yourselves? Did you all actually lose those elections? Which is it? Is it fraud? Or is it bullshit? Because it's bullshit at the end of the day. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you rock with it. If you don't rock with it, you don't have to ever see me again. Next time, well, till next time, I should say. Stay safe. And don't let these Republicans run roughshod over the election process. Don't let them brainwash you. Just do your research. And don't be biased in your research. Be truthful with yourself. Look at all the facts across the board. The red facts, the blue facts, the gray facts. Look at them all to find the truth. Because at the end of the day, we're stronger when we have the numbers.